What's up, everyone? And today is a great day, and next patch is a great patch because Klee has got buffs once again.
Yeah, baby!
More than one, in fact. First, a few patches ago, we got the Hexarai buffs alongside Duran's release. Then, right after, we got the Rising Wind set, Klee's first real artifact set. And now this patch, we have Nicole plus her artifact set, Celestial Gift. And this is a dedicated Hexarai support set. It can give up to 40% elemental damage bonus for your Hexarai team. If you just want a number, you could expect about a 20% team damage improvement for Klee next patch just by getting a C0 Nicole and farming the new artifact set. They're about both a 10% improvement, and then if you want to pull weapons or constellations, you can get further improvements from there. So let's jump right into it. You're probably wondering, why is Nicole so good? Why is she so good for Klee? Bear in mind, I did make a full Nicole early access guide if you want to check it in detail. But to summarize, she's an attack buffer. She can give 600 plus 300 attack, 900 attack total to Klee with just pressing her skill. And then if you use her burst, she can give huge multipliers to Klee, 480%. So it's 180% here, and then an extra one if you're using a Hexarai character times 4. So big attack buffs, big multiplier increases, and on top of that, she's also one of the best sustains in the game with a very powerful shield. And as I've recently looked at, shielders are kind of objectively better than healers if you've got the choice, and especially with Klee, because not taking the damage in the first place and not getting interrupted is basically superior than taking the damage, potentially getting interrupted and then healing it back. Unless you're playing like a mechanic or against an enemy where you need healing. So that quality of life just by itself is huge. Now you're probably wondering, how strong is Nicole's shield? Let me just show you for an example. Just stand here. Come on. Do more damage. Now we start taking damage. And that guy's damage is no joke, by the way. Just to put it in perspective, let me compare that with Inefa's shield. Who's a good shielder, by the way. Yeah, she shanks one less hit. So giving you the numbers, Nicole's shield scales with her attack. In fact, her whole kit basically scales with her attack. So you can easily get around 4,000 attack, maybe even over that. Maybe have some team buffs as well. With 4,000 attack, you're getting about a 19,000 shield. And interestingly, I did compare that versus Inefa. Inefa actually has basically the exact same multipliers as Nicole. But the difference is, Inefa, you have to build her with damage in her teams. Nicole, you just stack attack, so her shield's naturally gonna be stronger. She basically is as good of a shielder as Zhongli. So even ignoring damage buffs, that in itself is a huge buff to Klee. Even though Klee, when you do spark charge attacks, she does get infinite interrupt resistance. A shield is definitely great for the other situations, and just a shield is still amazing. I'm sure a lot of you will appreciate it. Another advantage Nicole has is she's actually an incredible pyro battery. If you look at Bennett, I got 2 particles, but he can give about 2 to 3. But you have to spend a lot of time on field to really get energy from him. Nicole, you just press her skill at the start of a fight. I'm pretty sure that's 4 to 5 pyro particles at a time, which again is huge for Klee and her teammates. Pyro energy always helps, especially in Stygian when you're starting with no energy. You can just like pop Nicole's skill, maybe pop a Klee's skill. And look, her ults almost fill up. Now, I did mention the buffs are not just with Nicole. Let's go over the new artifact set, Celestial Gift. And one of the cool things with this set is, it's not always been easy to stack support sets on your Klee team. Maybe you had Noblesse, maybe you had Vivi on an animal character, maybe you had Tenacity somewhere. This gives you another powerful support set. So what does it do? First of all, the 2-piece set gives energy recharge, which is very nice for Nicole, or maybe even some other characters. Makes them easier to cast their burst. The actual amazing part is the Hexarai passive. So when you're playing her with another Hexarai character, as you automatically do in a Klee team, it will give your party 40 elemental damage bonus for the holder's element and whoever's on field. 40% is massive. It's basically like the scroll set of Natlin, but this arguably has even less restrictions. You just have to use the character's skill. So let's say my Klee at the moment has 75 pyro damage bonus. I don't even need to do a reaction on Nicole. All I need to do is press her skill, switch to Klee, and her Klee has 115. But this set can buff 2 elements if the holder is a different element to the on-field character. So if I switch to Fischl now, she also gets 40% electro and pyro. How much of an improvement is the new support set for Klee? It buffs her personal damage by about 14%, which is huge. If you're wondering why 40% pyro damage is not bigger, it's just because Klee has a lot of damage bonus in her kit and it all kind of stacks. So your pyro damage bonus will be stacking with extra damage bonus she gets for her charge attack, maybe as well as weapons as well. But it's still a big increase. So if you're wondering who equips it, you basically always want to give it to Nicole. Now you're probably wondering, if Nicole's pyro and Klee's pyro, how do you get the electro damage bonus onto Fischl or your other teammate? Well, we can test if Fischl actually snapshots this buff. Because if Fischl snapshots the buff, if you use Nicole's skill and then you use Fischl's skill, well, actually, you can just keep attacking with Klee and they'll both be getting the buff. That would allow Fischl to use a DPS set like Golden Troop or even another buffing set like Tenacity instead of having to give Fischl Celestial Gift. Let me just remove one of the Golden Troop pieces. So if I use Nicole's skill, then switch to Fischl, Ozzy doing 9,200. If I switch off from Oz, he's still doing 9,200. Let me just show it one more time. So Fischl has no buffs from Celestial Gift right now. See, it's still the same number. So Fischl does in fact snapshot the buffs. Her signature is quite good, especially in Klee teams. In fact, I did calculate it to be pretty much as big of an upgrade as getting Klee's best 5-star weapon, which if you didn't know, Klee's best 5-star weapon is Nefer's weapon right now, just because it gives a lot of crit damage and crit rate. But I would actually rather go for Nicole's weapon. Why would I rather than go for Nicole's weapon? First of all, it gives a ton of attack. It is super high base attack, so this will be increasing Nicole's buffs, but it will also be increasing her shield. Second of all, it will give 26% damage bonus to your on-fielder, and then half of that, so 13% damage bonus to your off-field characters. And then also, it kind of basically solves her energy. And she's not that hard to build anyway, because she just scales with attack. So you just build her attack, 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 and then maybe even more attack, and then just try to get ER. This amount of ER is perfectly fine in a Klee team. I do recommend about 160 to 190% for most teams, but having her weapon makes that even more comfortable. But here's the other reason why her weapon is good. She will be on banner at the same time as Durin. You might be playing Klee with both Durin and Nicole, so having a chance of getting both their weapons could be extra nice. Also, I do want to cover a small damage increase tech that we learned after her release, which is basically known as the Phantom Charge Attack. It's not going to be a big damage increase, but it is maybe about 2% team damage increase doing it, and it's not hard to do. So the most easiest combo you can do is basically just spamming normal attacks, which you can definitely still do, which this is what it looks like, which is just spamming left click. Maybe getting 5 combos in. Just make sure to use your skill as well. And doing 5 combos will basically get you 5 charge attacks. And they generally all should have the explosive sparks. However, what you can do with the Phantom Charge Attack is you can actually get an extra charge attack in. And trading maybe 1 or 2 normal attacks for that extra charge attack. Now, normally trying to squeeze out extra charge attacks on Klee, you risk not getting this full sparks on all the charge attacks. So how does the Phantom Charge Attack do? Basically, right at the end, you do a charge attack into the N3. So you do your normal attack spam as normal for first 4. And then in the 5th one, you do N2, then charge attack, and then the final one. That final one, when you've actually got her burst active, will be the N3. But it allows you to activate 1 spark, but get 2 charge attacks at the same time. Because they both basically hit at about the same time. It only consumes 1 spark. And it's very simple to do. I'll just show it here. So do you do your first 3? Maybe use your E then. 3, 4. There. So that final one there, if he didn't die, he would be hit by 2 charge attacks right there. And that's what people call the phantom charge attack. And yeah, it basically increases Klee's personal damage by about 3%. So it's not as insane as like a skirt combo or a Marika combo, but it doesn't take any skill at all. And it would increase your team damage by about 2%, which is free damage at the end of the day. I've got 2 main examples here. One is an Overload team and another is a Mono Pyro team. The Overload team, I guess originally was Bennett, and then you were replacing him with Durin, and now you can actually replace Durin with Nicole. Nicole can be about 9 to 10% damage increase over Durin, on top of her shield and quality of life. On top of that, I'm not going to talk too much about constellations here, but her constellations also do seem to be just slightly better during constellations. And Durin's constellations were already quite good for Klee. So she's pretty much just the perfect support for Klee. But another team I want to talk about where you can actually play Nicole and Durin at the same time are Mono Pyro type teams. And let me use Kazuha here. This was the classic Klee team where back in the day, Kazuha used to be the perfect support for Klee. Where you use Kazuha's skill just before you switch to Klee, and he pulls in Jumpy Dumpty and the mines. And if your mines didn't hit everyone, Kazuha's skill will make sure they hit everyone. Mono Pyro is especially effective against one of the new Stygian bosses who is weak to Pyro Animo teams, where you get some Pyro swells. But you don't have to play Kazuha. Sucrose should also be great. She was always the budget option for Klee, but with the Hexerite buffs, she actually gives a lot of damage bonus now as well. You can get 7% here, and then if you have a C6, you can get another 8%. She's very comparable to Kazuha if you can use her burst. Just like Kazuha, if you use Sucrose's burst, it will pull in Jumpy Dumpty and the mines. So that has some great synergy with Klee. And you can even put in the mines further with her skill, again like Kazuha, so it's got great synergy. The only issue is Sucrose is relying on her burst, and her burst has 80 energy cost. But on the plus side, you can just stack a lot of energy recharge and use something like Favonia's Codex, because she doesn't actually need much EM in this team, because you're not really doing any reactions that want EM buffs. So you can just stack energy recharge, and I think Sucrose should work quite well. Another option you can play is the other new character, Prune, who she's kind of a weird one because she's supposed to be designed for these Nicole Hexerite teams, and she does give team buffs. She'll buff your team's damage bonus based on her attack. But the problem is, some of her other mechanics, like here buffing her own attack, this requires her teammate to trigger a reaction, which you won't do in a Mono Pyro team. And she even has a really good C6, which would buff your on-fielder's attack. But again, this requires your party to trigger a reaction, which you're probably not doing in a Mono Pyro team. But having said that, I played Prune. I still also managed to clear Fearless, even though a lot of her passives weren't as effective. She still works fine. But I guess a team like this would be extra good if you're fighting an enemy you can do reactions off of. So maybe you're fighting Slimes or Tulpa or some sort of Electro enemy. So with that being said, let me show some gameplay clips of me fighting a Stygian Fearless boss. Unfortunately, even though I would consider an Overload team like this to be the most ideal Klee team, there isn't really a Stygian boss that's weak to Overload right now. But enjoy this gameplay nonetheless. So, hope you found this video helpful. I'm sure a lot of you are really excited to try these new Klee Nicole teams. I would definitely recommend getting her. Great quality of life, great buffs, just a very, very good teammate for Klee. And there is a lot of future potential as well, because she's not restricted by any elements or anything. So maybe Klee Nicole finds even more archetypes to play with in the future. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.